Call to order this hearing of the Minnesota Senate Taxes Committee, Wednesday, March 12th, 8:35 a.m. A quorum is present. Members have the minutes before them. Are there additions or corrections? Seeing none, the minutes stand approved as presented. First bill on our agenda is Senator Kunesh, Senate File 1356. If you want to, members, if you want to look at the STE chart in your packets for the impacts of these exemptions that we're going to be taking up today, as well as a few TIF bills, please direct your attention there. Senator Kunesh, welcome to the committee.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and members. This morning, I have a bill in front of you, 1356. It is a bill that would assist in the renovation and expansion of our Spring Lake Park City Hall, which is in dire need. The City Council undertook a $8.8 million City Hall renovation expansion to address numerous facility deficiencies, and the project is now subsequently complete. And so that building, which was 47 years old and before its renovation, was deficient in a number of areas, including lack of restrooms, limited handicap accessibility, outdated inefficient heating and cooling systems, poor exterior insulation, lack of a locker room for female officers, and the list goes on. All of these deficiencies have now been addressed, and they provide the residents of Spring Lake Park with a modern facility that will serve the community for many years to come. The total construction cost is anticipated to end up at approximately $6.25 million. The city is seeking a general sales tax exemption on construction materials for that project, and the savings from that sales tax exemption would reduce the property tax burden to our taxpayers. This City Hall is more than a building. It serves the heart of the Spring Lake Park community, and the renovation and expansion project is now substantially complete. Public has responded very overwhelmingly positively to this improvement, and the Spring Lake Park City Council sincerely appreciates the committee's inclusion of this project in last year's omnibus tax bill and respectfully requests the committee's continued support this year. And that is my testimony.
Thank you very much, Senator Kunesh, for that thorough explanation. Are there comments or questions for Senator Kunesh? Revenue estimate is in the packets based on information provided by the City of Spring Lake Park. We have a handout in your packets, and we have one testifier. Mr. Buchholz, if you would identify yourself for the record, we're pleased to have your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Rast, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today. My name's Dan Buchholz, and I'm the Administrator Clerk Treasurer for the City of Spring Lake Park, and I want to express our strong support for Senate File 1356. As Senator Kunesh noted, our City Hall was built in 1977, and we had an addition put on in 1994, and there were a significant number of deficiencies that between relying on 7 residential furnaces and air conditioners to heat the commercial building. I have no idea why. Restrooms were inadequate. We just had 2 stalls for men and women, each for men and women, in a 20,000 square foot facility that served 25 employees and had large community events. Our exterior insulation was rated at R11, far below the standard of R21, leading to uncomfortable drafts and high energy costs. We had 1 locker room, and at the time when we started construction, we had 2 female officers. Now we have 4, so the locker room facilities for our police were deficient. So a lot of barriers that made the building difficult to navigate and required a significant renovation. So the project is substantially complete, and we came before the committee last year and appreciated your support and hope that that continues. This bill will help minimize the financial impact of the project on our taxpayers. We issued a bond for the project, and so getting that sales tax money back will help reduce that debt service payment. So thank you for your past support, and I hope that continues.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments for the witness? Seeing none, thank you very much, Senator Kunesh, and Senate File 1356 will be laid over for consideration in the omnibus bill.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next bill on our agenda is Senate File 1684. According to the agenda, we're actually going to hear 1425 a little bit later. Senator Kupec. Senator Kupec brings us Senate File 1684. Senator Kupec.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. The city of Moorhead is requesting an exemption from sales tax for the construction materials needed to renovate the Moorhead City Hall. Moorhead City Hall is located in downtown Moorhead and was attached to the Moorhead Center Mall. It will be the only building not being demolished as part of the downtown center redevelopment, which is coming up. We'll talk a little bit more about that. The City Hall was built in 1973. The building needs substantial renovation to replace systems to meet the needs of the growing community of Moorhead. Moorhead's population has increased by more than 50% in the 52 years since the building was constructed. And I have with me Lisa Bodie from the city of Moorhead.
Thank you very much. Are there comments or questions for Senator Kupec to begin with? The revenue estimate is in your packets, showing the total project construction cost at $21.7 million, based on information provided by the city of Moorhead. The exemption goes over 2 years at a cost of $720,000. Welcome to the committee, and we're pleased to have your testimony, Ms. Bodie.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Bodie. I'm the governmental.
And I'm sorry, you need to bring that mic as close to your
Okay,
mouth as
how's that?
possible and speak as loudly as you can.
All right. Good morning,
destroying the mic.
members and Chair Rest. My name is Lisa Bodie. I'm the Governmental Affairs Director for the City of Moorhead. And we thank you for your time and your consideration of Senate File 1684. The total project cost, as the project described by Senator Kupec, is $21.7 million. The materials cost is about $10.5 million. The city is using a construction manager at risk delivery model, and so we're pretty confident in those numbers. This building, much like Spring Lake Park, our city hall is about the same age and in desperate need of renovation. The shell of the building is great. It's brutalist architecture style, and yet pebbles fall from the roof. There's a honking toilet and leaking pipes, and the building is overcrowded. In fact, my office and several others have moved out of the building and all of the conference spaces that we've had within the building have really been turned into offices. As Senator Kupec said, our population has grown over 50% since the building was built. And so some of the improvements that we'll have in the building are a ground floor, one-stop service delivery, instead of having to take an elevator up to get to any type of service. There'll be complete removal and replacement of our existing HVAC systems. There'll be 5 floors of renovated workspace with new conference rooms and collaborative spaces, an enhanced exterior structure with improved insulation, and new windows for optimal lighting and temperature control. All of these things are desperately needed. As Senator Kupec also said, we have another request related to our downtown project, and this is the only building that will remain, and a civic plaza will be added to the outside of the financing of this project. So we're really excited about what this means and keeping our city hall in our downtown as a generator of activity and commerce around us. So I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments for Ms. Bodie? Seeing none, I would also direct members' attention, there is a letter in support of this request from the Moorhead Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much, Senator Kunesh. Senate File 1684 will be laid over for consideration in the omnibus bill. Did you want to say anything further?
No, I did not.
Okay, thank you very
I
much.
think I have the next bill, too.
Members, the next set of bills, Senator Kupec's going to stay right there. I was wondering why you're not getting up. Our tax increment finance bills, and the first one with the same witness is Senate File 1991. Is that- I'm sorry, Senate File 1994. Senator Kupec, and there is the TIF chart also in members' packets from Mr. Sylvia describing this request as well. Senator Kupec.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, and this will sort of tie into with the last bill here. So the City of Moorhead is requesting an extension of a TIF district regulations to allow additional 5 years of eligible construction from 5 to 10 to ensure the viability of Moorhead's downtown redevelopment and the long-term success of the district as it becomes a walkable and livable neighborhood. The development area is 18 acres right in the heart of Moorhead's downtown, and it's the site of a 1970s constructed Moorhead Center Mall. The Herberger's department store was the anchor tenant. Those Herberger's closed nationwide in 2018, and the mall was economically distressed and obsolete. The downtown center TIF district was established last year. Most phases of the demolition are already complete, and the first milestone development project is under construction. First commercial building will be home to a downtown chiropractic, which was a longtime business within the former mall, and they'll be expanding and serving their offerings with a larger footprint. 3 stories of housing will be above, with 153 market rental units. Certification of the district by Clay County Auditor will be completed this month as the 2025 tax roll is formalized. To achieve the 8 to 10 projects that are envisioned within the Moorhead Downtown Center will undoubtedly take more than 5 years to complete from a construction and coordination standpoint, as well as the need for gradual market absorption of the housing and commercial development. The additional time also allows the city and the developers to pursue senior and affordable housing options that may take more time to assemble and fund with agency partners. And again, I have Lisa Bodie here with me to talk more about it.
Thank you. Again, I'll direct members' attentions to handouts in the packet. The revenue estimate shows a general fund impact of 0. This bill has a House companion from Representative Keeler. There is a letter from the county commissioners of Clay County, statement from the superintendent of the Moorhead Area Public Schools, and also, again, a letter of support from the Chamber of Commerce. Questions, comments? We'll proceed then to the witness. Ms. Bodie, you need to introduce yourself again for the record. Thank you.
Good morning again. I'm Lisa Bodie, Governmental Affairs Director for the City of Moorhead. Senator Kupec described the project very well. This bill was considered by the committee last year, but was not included in the in the final tax bill. The three reasons why more than 5 years are needed are the size of the project. As Senator Kupec said, it's 18 acres. We're putting in new streets. We are installing all kinds of new infrastructure, and it is just 10 times as large as any TIF district we've ever done in Moorhead. And so it's just so large. The scope of the project includes almost $475 million in new development, and that includes housing, commercial space, civic space, and parking structures. The staging and phasing needed to do this work will take longer than 5 years. The market needs to absorb these units gradually, and with all the coordination for the public infrastructure installation and the commercial development, we need to take time to do it right. And it's a large site, but there's also a lot of interactions between the spaces. So that is largely it. We're really excited about it. I will say that our downtown plan, master plan, which we've been following, has had more citizen participation than any other project in Moorhead's history. So we're really proud of it. It's really exciting, but it's complex. So thank you for your consideration of the extension.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much. Senator Dibble.
I have an extremely important question. Senator Miller brought Spring Grove soda when he was representing a request from Spring Grove. I'm looking for the deli bars from the DQ up in Moorhead, Senator Kupec. I did see that the DQ is open. That's a sign of spring, right?
Madam Chair, yes, that is a sign of spring. March 1st, no matter the weather, the historic old Dairy Queen opens, and the Dilly Bar was invented in Moorhead. I don't think they quite travel as well as soda from Senator Miller's district.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Thank you, Senator Kupec. We have Senate File 1994, and it will be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill. Thank you very much, Senator Kupec. Thank you, Ms. Bodie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Senate File 1476, Senator Mann. Welcome to the committee, Senator Mann. If you would proceed and explain your bill. This is a bill that was part of the Senate proposal, Senate tax bill last year. As I understand it, there are no changes in the language. Is that correct?
Correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, you want to then explain Senate File 1476, which also has a House companion from Representative Joachim.
Yes.
Senator Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. So Senate File 1476 is a request by the City of Edina to consider extending a 5-year extension on one property and a 10-year extension on another property that are already certified as tax increment financing districts. The first district is at 72nd in France. This is a 5.2 acre property that was certified in early 2023 as a redevelopment district, previously developed with a pair of commercial buildings built over 50 years ago. A private developer intends to invest more than $120 million with the intention of splitting the site into 3 blocks. The 2 largest blocks will be redeveloped with a new office building and a new apartment building. TIF increment is needed to reimburse the cost of the new road, sidewalk, stormwater facilities, and a public plaza. Although the land was purchased and cleared by the developer, the rapid rise in interest rates and the tightening of the capital investment markets in 23 and 24 has delayed the project. The other district is at 70th in France, is a 5.8 acre property that was originally certified as a 15-year renewal district in early 2022. Here, an outdated commercial building, also built over 50 years ago, was bought with the intention of splitting splitting up the site into 4 blocks and utilizing the TIF increment to build new roads, sidewalks, bicycle facilities, a public plaza, and public parking. The anticipated project will be redeveloped to include a bank, a new office and retail building, new apartment building, and new shared parking. The developer expected to break ground in summer of '23, but has faced similar barriers as the first parcel. While the bank branch is completed, the other phases are delayed. And with that, Madam Chair, we do have testifiers.
Welcome to the committee. Mr. Neuendorf, we're pleased to have your testimony. If you'd identify yourself for the record.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. I'm Bill Neuendorf. I'm the City of Edina's Economic Development Manager. Here to testify in support of the Senate File 1476. And as Senator Mann mentioned, this bill does enable the transformational redevelopment of 2 underutilized commercial properties on France Avenue in Edina. As was mentioned, both of these projects have been delayed with the instability in the capital markets and the escalating interest costs and construction costs. The language that's in the bill this year is the same that was in last year's bill that just didn't make it all the way to that final tax bill that was passed at the end of the day. So that language worked for us last year. It would also work for us this year. These 2 projects really seek to secure a total of over $400 million of private investment on these sites when they'd be combined together. It's a combination of new office space, new retail space, new multifamily housing. In Edina, we don't use TIF very often, but when we do see that it's essential to make a good project move forward, we're certainly not bashful to use it. But we use it on those elements where the community finds public good and public benefit. So each of these sites were initially built back in the late 1960s. And construction in that era meant private development without public access, without public roads, public sidewalks, utilities. There were no major environmental requirements back then, so the stormwater and the rainwater just floods into the street. In order to bring those properties into a modern era, we actually need real storm sewers and ponding and pipes and utilities. And that's where we apply the TIF dollars to make those good things happen. Additionally, the city is also considering a major roadway improvement at that 72nd and France site. We're considering a project that would allow pedestrians and bicyclists to cross the busy 8-lane France Avenue without conflicting with cars and trucks. We're currently looking at an underpass design that is incorporated into these privately developed sites. The city would be responsible for the roadway portion, and the developers would be responsible for the portions on their site. That type of underpass could not only connect the sites, but connect the neighborhoods. TIF would be a major funding source for that roadway improvement as well. For several years, the developers have done what they said they would do. Back in 2022 and 23, they acquired the sites. We had them inspected, declared blighted, eligible for that designation. They had private investors online for the equity. Back then, they had also secured 40% pre-leasing for the office buildings. But unfortunately, the financial markets were not ready for them, and the project lagged for a couple years. In order for the project to move forward, we do need these extensions to give us more time. And due to the rapidly escalating costs, we do think we need to tack some years on the end as well. Without these changes, both projects would be at risk. They'd probably be dead. So we'd really like to keep them going. And one example of why this is important, so far on the 70th in France site, after the site was cleared, that created an opportunity to relocate the bank that was right in the middle of that property. And that's just the tiniest first step. That step alone increased the property tax base of the parcel from 1.3 million to over 4 million. So that's the smallest portion of the project, and we really hope to replicate that in the next phases. So again, the city seeks approval of the Senate file. We certainly support it, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, very much. Are there questions or comments for the author or the witness? I will note that the request in the legislation is for a duration extension. That's only permitted if the other taxing jurisdictions, the city, the county, and the school district approve of the duration extension. Senator Dibble?
Thank you. Again, just wasting a little bit of committee time here. I was just remembering my dad telling stories. He grew up about 10 or 20 blocks north of here, and he tells stories about how this area out here was all farms. There was a quarry. It was a little like 2-lane country road. I remember as a kid the quarry, and it was being a lot of open fields. So it's pretty amazing to see this
Pretty
development.
amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Anyone else? Seeing none. Senator Mann, Senate File 1476 is laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill. We're going to move now to item number 11, Senate File 1425. Senator Port is on Zoom if she is present.
I am, Madam Chair, thank you. I can give my testifiers just a minute to get up there, but then thank you, Chair Rest and members of the Senate Tax Committee. It's great to be with you, and I know you have many bills on the agenda this morning, so we will be quick. Thank you for hearing Senate File 1425, a bill I'm carrying for the city of Burnsville. This bill provides a sales tax exemption for construction materials for our Burnsville City Hall. Burnsville appreciates that you were able to make public safety facilities exempt, but we're now asking for that same treatment for our new City Hall. We are grateful that you tried to help us with this same request last biennium. I'm aware, Madam Chair, that you and Senate Tax Committee members are reviewing this important tax policy this year. I appreciate that this has been a bipartisan issue in the Senate Tax Committee, and I understand that resources are a bit tight this session. Having said that, I'm hoping you can find a way to support this request. And Madam Chair, if you would permit, Elizabeth Couts, the mayor of Burnsville, is here to testify for this bill.
Thank you, Senator Port. We'll direct members' attention to the revenue estimate. It spans over 3 years and is in excess of $1.2 million for those 3 years, based on the total project construction cost of $43.7 million, and the materials at $17.5 million. And again, based on information provided by the city of Burnsville. Mayor Couts, welcome to the committee. If you'd identify yourself for the record, we're pleased to have your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the Senate Tax Committee for allowing the city of Burnsville to address you today. I'm Elizabeth Couts, mayor of the city of Burnsville, and I would like to first begin by thanking Senator Port for her strong advocacy of our community and our shared constituents. Thank you, Senator Port, for introducing Senate File 1425, which would provide a sales tax exemption for the construction of the expansion of our Burnsville City Hall. I also want to thank you, Chair Rest, for your support of Burnsville in so many ways over the years. We are truly grateful for your understanding and your compassion each time we have been before you. Today, we are asking the Senate Tax Committee to consider exempting the sales tax, the state sales tax on construction materials for our City Hall project. We are aware that this type of request has been granted for many public facilities in the past, and we also respect that your resources are very tight this year. Our request for a sales tax exemption is a common sense policy that ensures a local government does not pay state sales tax on construction materials, thereby reducing the cost to our taxpayers. Madam Chair, I know you, along with other former chairs and committee members, have been supportive of these requests in the past, and I thank you for that and for your consideration of our requests today. We have provided a handout on our project, and it is in your materials. Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you for your time today and for this opportunity to speak with you today. We are grateful, and I stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Mayor Cowles, are there questions or comments for the mayor? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. Senator Port, I don't know if you're going to come back up on the screen.
I'm here.
Okay, great. I don't see you on the screen, that's why I asked. Did you have any final comment?
Appreciate the committee's time today and your thoughtfulness as you're making these decisions. And we hope Burnsville will fit into the picture this year.
Thank you very much, Senator Port. Senate File 1425 will be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill. We will now go back to number 8 on the agenda, Senate File 109, Senator Xiong. This is now back to a tax increment financing proposal. On behalf of Maplewood, welcome to the committee, Senator Xiong. If you may proceed to describe your bill.
Good morning, Chair Rest and members of the Tax Committee. I am pleased to describe Senate File 109, an expansion of a Maplewood TIF district. Madam Chair, Senate File 109 has only one section, and I would like to draw your attention to lines 2.2 to 2.4 of the bill. Lines 2.2 to 2.4 expands the geographic area in which increment generated from these districts may be spent. You see the area is described by street boundaries. The only additional change is the effective date of the bill beginning on line 2.18. Madam Chair, in Maplewood, we want to thank you for your assistance in 2013 in trying to help Maplewood revitalize a part of our city. You worked with us to understand our needs, and we are grateful to you for giving us some tools to help a critical part of our city. However, we continue to struggle a little dealing with the North End area and the area around the Maplewood Mall. And we are once again asking for your help. With that, Madam Chair, I have with me Mayor Mary Lee Abrams, who would like to testify. I also have with me the Maplewood City Manager, Mike Sable, who is also available to answer any questions as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Xiong. I will point out again on the handout from Senate Council that this particular TIF district established under special law in 2013, primarily for the 3M corporate campus. Welcome to the committee, Mayor Abrams. We're pleased to have your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Rest, Lead Weber, and members of the Senate Tax Committee. Madam Chair, thank you, and thank you to Senator Xiong for your leadership in Senate File 109, and thanks again to the committee for this opportunity. I'm Mary Lee Abrams, Mayor of Maplewood, and I'm here today to talk to you about why this bill is so important for our community. Maplewood is a strong, vibrant city, but like many communities, we have areas that need a little extra help to reach their full potential. One of those areas is the north end of Maplewood and the area around the Maplewood Mall. It was once a retail powerhouse, but now it's struggling to find its next chapter. The mall has faced the same economic pressures as many retail centers around the country, and declining foot traffic, shifting consumer behaviors, and aging facilities. It's been a challenge. We know redevelopment doesn't happen overnight, and it certainly doesn't happen without the right tools. TIF has proven effective in Maplewood, helping transform underutilized areas into thriving spaces for businesses, housing, and community assets. Senate File 109 would allow us to leverage existing redevelopment dollars in new ways, spurring reinvestment in these key areas. Without proactive steps, we risk stagnation. This bill provides the flexibility needed to ensure the area doesn't just survive, but thrives. Successful redevelopment requires strong partnerships. While we know our city best, we can't do it alone. State support through this committee's leadership enables projects that benefits not just Maplewood, but the broader region, creating jobs, strengthening businesses, and enhancing quality of life. We appreciate your recognition of the importance of flexibility and using existing tools to help our community grow. Your leadership helps cities like ours shape their future, and we urge your support for Senate File 109 to keep Maplewood moving forward. I want to thank you for your time and your commitment to strong Minnesota communities. Madam Chair, I also have with me the City Manager of Maplewood, Mike Sable, who can also answer any questions that you or the committee may have for us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are there questions or comments for the mayor or for Senator Xiong? We will be reviewing, this is a slightly unusual request in terms of expanding the area in which TIF revenues can be spent based on special legislation passed 12 years ago. So we will be taking a very careful look at the request. Any other comments? Seeing none, Senator Xiong, we are pleased to lay over Senate File 109 for the omnibus bill.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Certainly. Next, Senator Cwodzinski, who brings us Senate File 736. And members, in your packets, there is an A1 amendment. Senator Klein moves the A1 amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Senator Cwodzinski, welcome to the committee. If you would explain your bill.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for adopting the A1 amendment in such an efficient manner. Good to see my honorable and esteemed colleagues. This bill before you is Senate File 736, which provides extensions for the City of Minnetonka's renewal and renovation of the TIF district. I drive by it every single day, this particular, these parcels in Minnetonka, and they're prime examples of what what TIF districts are all about, because it's filled with and underused office space. And we're asking for an extension that Ms. Wishnak will explain to you. The Department of Transportation has been behind the schedule a little bit, and there's been delays because of Southwest, the transit development. And last year, this committee, Chair Rest and Chair Gomez in the House, approved the 5- and 6-year rules. And the thing that I'm proudest of in this particular development are two things. One of them is out of the 1,600 units that have been built so far, 40% of them are for affordable housing in some way, shape, or form. And the city of Minnetonka is built to the rim with. There's no room for expansion, and yet the mayor and the council have found the wherewithal to find this, but these parcels are prime to build 40% of the, like I said, 40% of the 1,600 units are for affordable housing. And like I said, I drive by it every single day. And the other thing that I'm really excited about is there's going to be this public gathering space as part of this development. And I'm reading a book right now called Bowling Alone, and it's all about how we're not interacting with our species anymore. And we just go home and we close our doors and we watch screens all night. And I think I'm pretty excited about the possibilities of this place where human beings, our species, can go every evening after dinner, and instead of plopping down on the couch and watching TV, maybe they'll run into a couple kids playing soccer, or a elderly couple sitting on a park bench, or whatever they want to use this space to do. So with that said, Madam Chair and members, I'm turning it over to Ms. Wishnak, and thank you for being here today. Thank you for hearing the bill.
Thank you, Senator Cwodzinski. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Wishnak. We are pleased to have your testimony. If you'd identify yourself for the record.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and committee members. Again, my name is Julie Wishnak. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Minnetonka, and I have been that for about 20 years. And I'm really proud of the things we've been able to do and accomplish in Minnetonka, especially as the Senator mentioned, affordable housing has been the #1 goal that we've had for many years, and it's really showing up in many of the units that you see in this development. I think the Senator covered the issues here very well. I think we have some delays that were unexpected, delays not only from the pandemic when it was set up to some of the MnDOT planned improvements that we had in mind. It also had to do with transit construction. So lots of things happening, and not to mention private property owners as well. And when they're ready to make development happen is impacting the timing of some of the projects that we anticipated. Again, I know it's a complicated request, although I think the main point of what I want to share with you is we're not proposing to extend the district. So some of these extensions are really just about when the parcels are knocked out of the TIF district, how long we have to spend the money. Those are the important points that I wanted to share with you. I'll keep it short, Chair. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the witness or for Senator Cwodzinski? I will point out that exceptions to the 5- and 6-year rules are not all that uncommon. This length of time for an extension of the knockdown rule, that's pretty unusual. We'll be looking very carefully at that request, and I appreciated the comments that justify the need for going from the 4-year knockdown rule to allowing just any improvement of the parcel to 9 years. That's fairly unusual. Any comments? Seeing none, thank you very much, Senator Cwodzinski. And Senate File 736 will be laid over for consideration in the omnibus bill. The next bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Certainly. The next bill on our agenda is Senate File 1314. Senator Bahr. Is this the last time we're going to see this? Or just one in a never-ending series?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, in the immortal words of Yogi Berra, it's deja vu all over again.
Welcome to the committee, Senator Bahr, if you'd explain your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a minor TIF adjustment. It doesn't just the area. It does not just the timeline. It just allows for the city to create some interfund transfers. And if there's any questions, I have the city administrator here to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Senator Bahr. It's a pretty straightforward request. Are there any questions for Senator Bahr? We will welcome you, Mr. Hagan, to get your presence here on the record. If you would identify yourself for the record and make some brief comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian Hagan, City Administrator for the City of Ramsey. I'll just echo, we understood the assignment last year. We were not planning on coming back, but since this committee supported this bill last year, we thought we would try one more time. Again, I'll also echo, we're not asking for an extension of time on the district to either incur costs or collect revenue back. We simply just want the language very clear for some staff in the future, if they're looking at this district, to know that projects, in public infrastructure projects that we incurred money on could be repaid through interfund loans. Some of the investments were done before the district was created, but they're specifically called out in the original language. So we just want it nice and clear for future review.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Questions? Seeing none, Senator Bahr, we will be laying over Senate File 1314 for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and
Thank
thank you,
you.
members of the committee.
The next bill is 1570, Senator Maye Quade. Okay, we're going to go on to the next bill. Senator Maye Quade, I understand, is on her way. Senator Hauschild, are you ready? And Senator Hauschild, we'll hear your first bill, and then if Senator Maye Quade comes in, we'll hear her bill and then come back to you, since you're a member of the committee. Senator Hauschild brings us an STE, a sales tax exemption proposal, Senate File 1617. Senator Hauschild.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you, I have Senate File 1617, a bill that would provide construction sales tax exemption for Cook County schools. This exemption will allow the district to reinvest over $600,000 in savings directly back into their facility improvement project, helping to address rising construction costs and potentially fund critical upgrades that were not included in the second referendum question that they faced. Cook County Schools serves all of Cook County, located in the far northeastern corner of Minnesota along the shores of Lake Superior and surrounded by the Boundary Waters Canoe area. The district operates one pre-K-12 building in Grand Marais, originally built in 1952, which is now in urgent need of modernization to meet current educational, security, and ADA compliance standards. In November 2024, the community overwhelmingly supported a $24.17 million bond referendum, launching a significant renovation and expansion project. This project will improve school safety, accessibility, student services, while also expanding facilities for athletics and community use. However, inflation and rising construction costs threaten the district's ability to complete the full scope of these improvements. Passing 1617 would provide direct relief for Cook County schools, ensuring that local tax dollars stay in the community and are used to support students, teachers, and essential school infrastructure rather than being spent on sales tax. To provide more insight on the impact of this legislation, I'm pleased to introduce Superintendent Chris Lindholm of the Cook County Schools. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hauschild. Are there questions or comments for Senator Hauschild to begin with? Seeing none, I would just direct members' attentions once again to the Department of Revenue's revenue estimate. The cost would come in fiscal years 27 and 28 for a total of nearly $500,000. And the bill is supported over in the House by House File 1035. Representative Skraba, do I pronounce that right?
I'm sorry, Madam
The
Chair.
representative that is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Representative Roger Skraba. Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Are there questions, comments? Then, seeing none, we'll turn to your witnesses. And I have Chris Lindblom, is that correct?
Yeah, Chris Lindholm. Yep.
Lingholm, okay, I'm sorry, I read that incorrectly. Welcome to the committee, sir. If he's superintendent, if you would give us your testimony by identifying yourself first.
Chair Rest, members of the committee, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Chris Lindholm. I am Superintendent of Cook County Schools, and it is an honor to be here, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear us out. Senator Hauschild, I want to thank you personally for introducing this bill. The senator covered very well what's going on here in this bill and what we're trying to accomplish. Cook County Schools serves the entire county of Cook County, all 3,300 square miles of it. About 470 students are served in that single pre-K through 12th grade building in Grand Marais. The building was opened in 1952, as the senator referred to. It was added onto in 1962, 1970, and 1998. 1998 was the last big remodel and added footprint to the building. And as was mentioned, our 2023 assessment tells us that significant updates are needed to be made to bring it up to standard with modern educational and accessibility standards, while also responding to our community's request for significant upgrades to security enhancements. So that includes a new secure entrance, new cameras, a new secure entrance, automated lockdown system, access control, the things that our community has asked for. We are looking to modernize our learning spaces, make our building more ADA compliant and better serve our special education students, and also add an auxiliary gym and a couple of locker rooms and changing areas for officials, as we currently use what might be considered a closet built in 1952 for some of our teams to change in. So we are committed to managing this referendum responsibly, but as the senator referred to, rising construction costs presents real challenges, and that's why we're seeking a construction sales tax exemption in Senate File 1617. This is not unprecedented, recently approved in other districts such as Duluth and Hibbing and others. It is a common sense solution to ensure our taxpayers' dollars go directly towards what the voters have asked for in passing this referendum. So on behalf of Cook County Schools, our students, and our community, I urge you to support Senate File 1617 to allow us to maximize the investment of our taxpayers in the future of education. Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Are there questions or comments? Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Superintendent. My question actually gets to, certainly, let me just say, not taxing our school districts for construction materials makes a lot of sense, and we hope to do that more. Many of us would like to stop that bad practice in general. But my question has to do with something I'm reading on your vision project summary, and particularly I appreciate the fact that you listed question 1 passed in the 24 bond referendum, question 2 failed, and question 3 failed. Yep. Now, we don't know what those were, but what I did note was in your document that the savings that will be recouped by not needing to pay sales tax on construction materials, which, like I said, many of us agree is a bad policy to have that in place. I'm just somewhat concerned because you're saying that it could, if passed, it will provide reimbursement, okay, for the sales tax on construction materials, resulting in the $600,000 in savings. That's all great. Reinvest back into the project to help pay for increased construction costs. All that makes a lot of sense. However, this last phrase brings some questions to my mind, and possibly some of the important items that did not pass in referendum question 2. And I guess I find that problematic, Madam Chair, that the voter, I liked what you said, that the voters passed the question 1, but they didn't pass question 2, and yet the savings that would come from this bill, it said possibly would be used to pass those items that did not pass in referendum 2. And I'm just wondering if you can explain that a little bit. It looks like we're trying to maybe usurp what the voters voted against. I think that would be a terrible precedent, so I would like you to explain that a bit.
Absolutely. So when we submit a request to...
Superintendent, you need to address me first.
Sorry, I
before you
apologize.
answer the question. That's okay. It's just for the record.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
Well, Madam Chair, I appreciate the question, and if I may respond.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you. So when we submit a request to the Minnesota Department of Education to do a referendum, we have to submit what's called review and comment. And that means that the money that is passed in a bond referendum can only be spent on the things that are absolutely bulleted out in the review and comment and approved by the Department of Education. So expounding on this was a reference to, at the end of a $24 to $25 million project, whether it plays $500,000 on one side or $500,000 on the other side of balancing the budget at the very end when the construction project ties out. If there is not enough money, it will all be spent on question one items. That's very simple, because that's the priority that's been outlined by our taxpayers. But if there's an extra $150,000, the question becomes, what do you spend that on at the end of the day? We are required by law to spend only on what's been approved in that review and comment by the Department of Ed. And so that would be, if there was extra money, we couldn't go out and hire a teacher, or we couldn't go out and buy curriculum materials, because that hasn't been approved in the review and comment, if that makes sense.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, my question is really not about what the Department of Ed approved or did not approve. My question is about the voters who voted in the November 2024 bond referendum, and they voted against question 2. My question is about usurping what the local voters, in this case, voted against. I do think that's a troubling, a very troubling precedent.
Superintendent?
Agreed. Well, the priority has to be on the things that were passed in question 1, 24.17 million, 100%, and that's what we would have to prioritize on the front end of any money that was in the Fund 6, the construction fund, towards the end of the project. I think what you're saying is absolutely correct.
Senator Nelson?
So, Madam Chair, Superintendent, so would the savings that would incur should today's bill pass and there not be tax on construction materials for the project that did pass, will any of those funds be used on anything that was not in question 1?
No, I highly doubt it, because that's why we're coming to you, right? Like the budget will likely go up as construction costs go up over the next 2 years. It'll be about a 2-year process to implement this construction project. So we know that's why we're here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for that somewhat clarification. But I do refer you to the fact that your document says that possibly some of the important items that did not pass in referendum question 2, the 600,000 could be reinvested to fund those projects. I'm just curious why that's there.
Sure.
Senator,
Madam Chair. So if I may, I'll also add that the school district board of education asked me, upon the failure of question 2 by less than 2% in last November, to seek other funding streams. And so our district has pursued funding from IRRB, has pursued funding from a local donor, has pursued funding from other sources to try to run another referendum next November, in which case, then if that passes at less than a third of the cost of the taxpayers of the first time, that would be a whole different question. So we're continuing to work towards trying to make sure we have a track for an 80-student track team that doesn't have a track or a jumping pit or a long jump space. We're trying to pursue that yet. That's hasn't been approved, and it hasn't been green lighted yet, and it can't be until November of 2025. So if that happens, then there would be a whole different set of funds in order to accomplish what's in question 2. So to give context and to be transparent, that conversation continues in Cook County. It's not done, and I didn't want to hide that in any way, shape, or form. It's a continuing conversation. What has been approved is question number 1, which was 24.17 million, and that's the part that we're focusing on right now. And come November, if it passes, we'll be engaging in that work for question number 2.
Madam Chair.
Senator Nelson?
Thank you. I've asked the questions. I don't know that my question has been totally answered about not using funds saved from construction on a project that the voters disapprove. So I appreciate the conversation, but remain concerned. Thank you.
Senator Hauschild.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Nelson. I understand the passion around the question and the importance of referendums. However, I would say I think in your question, the implication is that the people on the ground in Grand Marais and Cook County do not want school improvements based on the referendum. And I think there are two different ways people vote on those referendums. Perhaps they literally directly oppose what's in the project, or because they are in the most remote part of the state with seasonal recreation property, the wealthiest homes in their district not going towards their local school district referendums, because they are so distant that the construction costs are exorbitant compared to other suburban and wealthy areas like Rochester and the suburbs of the Twin Cities, that we face additional challenges to get our referendums passed. And so I guarantee you, when I do a town hall in Grand Marais next Friday, that there will be a huge amount of people that will be begging us to move forward with these questions. So I understand the intent of your question in terms of making sure we're following the voters' intent. However, my superintendent is doing his best to look out for our school district and advance educational opportunities for our rural residents in the most remote part of our state. And I think those are good intentions. And us bringing this bill forward is simply trying to make education affordable in greater Minnesota. And that's why we bring these things forward. So I'm hoping that the committee understands sort of the unique needs that we face in a place like Grand Marais and Cook County.
Thank you. Senator Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll just close with this. I do not think that overriding any type of referendum should be based upon good intentions by anyone. I think that's our duty, to listen to the voters. And so it's just that one piece. I support everything else that we've talked about here, but I will not be able to support overriding the will of voters who said no to projects in question 2 for whatever reason. That it would now, those projects, whatever, would be funded because of the refund on construction material. So thank you for the discussion.
Senator Driscowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, thank you for bringing this out, Senator Nelson. And Senator Hauschild and Superintendent, we have something called the law. Regardless of the will of the people running the school district, or the people who show up in Grand Marais for a meeting, the law is the law. So I would hope that the school district doesn't place themselves in a situation where there's a lawsuit that comes forward by the voters who did vote no. And so I think it's important that you look, as you operate down the road, at the law closely and make certain that that is what's guiding you rather than your passions as you move forward. The law comes first. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Hauschild?
Madam Chair, and Senator Driscowski and Senator Nelson, I appreciate, again, the comments. I think potentially there's a simple solution here. I guess maybe I would ask Council's office, is there a way either to clarify that this bill that we would be passing would be used explicitly on question 1 of this referendum? And then, number 2, my second part of that question is, if in the future they do pass an additional referendum, is there a way for this to retroactively go with the will of the voters to then cover question 2 or whatever the new question is?
Ms. Pollock?
Madam Chair and Senator Hauschild, I think on your first question, yes, we could put something in the language saying this is effective only if, you know, a question with such language is approved. On your second question, I'd have to think about that a little bit more. I think so. It would just take some good wordsmithing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think, again, I understand following the law. I want to be explicitly clear, and I think my superintendent does too, obviously. I think what we are getting at is we are working through these challenges and trying to fund our schools. This is all good intentions. We are just simply coming forward with ideas on how to best do this. If we need clarifications in the law, happy to do that, but just know that there are ongoing conversations to try to do another referendum and try to get this funding for the schools through different means. And we're simply asking that those sales tax, if that is approved by the voters, be retroactively applied, if possible, through the council's office.
Senator Hauschild, I think the revenue estimate is drawn only to the 17.4 million total construction costs and the 7.0 million the taxable materials, et cetera. So that, I think the revenue estimate already has limited it to question one.
Right.
But even though they passed it at a higher level, it's only for that. And, but I think clarifying language would be appreciated by all the members of the committee, including yourself. Senator Hauschild, I notice you have another witness. Would you like to speak? No?
Madam Chair, she's here for the next bill.
Oh, for the next bill?
Yep.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Senate File 1617 is laid over. We will now revert to our original, we'll revert to our original agenda. Senator Maye Quade brings us 1570. And then we will go back to your second bill. So encouraging your witness not to leave. Yes. Okay. Welcome to the committee, Senator Maye Quade. And you are bringing us Senate File, again, 1570.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. I have the honor of representing Apple Valley, and I'm pleased to be joined this morning by Apple Valley City Administrator Tom Lowell. The City of Apple Valley is tackling a large renovation project at their central maintenance facility. This facility is home to the crews and equipment necessary to maintain and improve the infrastructure of Apple Valley through the provision of key public services such as water, sewer, streets, parks, and natural resources. This facility includes 7 buildings on a 20-acre site, and some of these buildings are 40 years old and need significant renovation. Senate File 1570 seeks to provide a state sales tax exemption for the construction materials for this important project, and I urge your support. The renovation of the central maintenance facility is funded solely by the taxpayers of Apple Valley. The city is not asking for state bonding dollars, just for help in the form of a sales tax exemption for construction materials, a cost that continues to climb in today's inflationary environment. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll turn it over to our city administrator to provide more details.
Thank you. Are there questions for Senator Maye Quade about her proposal 1570? I will direct members' attention to the revenue estimate. It's a project that goes over 3 years, so the exemption is a total of $600,000 for $200,000 a year for FY 26, 27, 28. The total tax and materials are 8.7 million to get to that total for the refund. Welcome to the committee. Is it Mr. Lowell?
Yes, it is, Madam Chair.
Welcome to the committee, the city administrator for Apple Valley. If you would identify yourself for the record, we're pleased to have your testimony.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members. I am Tom Lowell, City Administrator for the City of Apple Valley, where I have proudly served for 25 years in that position. It is my honor today to represent our city on this particular project. I want to send our thanks to our senator, who has been a great representative of our community, and we appreciate her proposing this bill on our behalf. So Apple Valley is a community of 56,000 people, south suburb community, proud home of the Minnesota Zoo, and we are daily happy with the fact that we are the home of the zoo, bringing in so many visitors into our community. So today I'm here to speak in favor of Senate File 1570. This bill would grant the sales tax exemption for this important project that we have. Our handout provides an overview photo of the site that we're dealing with. It's a 20-acre site, 7 different buildings on that photograph. The buildings that are under consideration at this point are to the right side of that photo. Those are the main construction areas, maintenance areas. It involves both our streets division, our fleet maintenance division, and parks maintenance, as well as natural resources. In a community like Apple Valley, we have 420 lane miles of street in our community. We have 146 miles of sidewalk. We have over 1,000 trees in our public rights of way. and we maintain over 300 pieces of equipment and fleet vehicles in the community. So perhaps 20 acres is not a large site, but they do a lot of extremely important things on behalf of the community to make our community work. As the senator indicated, we did not ask for any bonding dollars to assist with this project. We're simply looking for the sales tax exemption on the materials that would go into this project. And we believe that this is a wise investment for our community. Our city is now over 50 years old. Some of these buildings are over 40 years old. It's time to renovate and expand some of these areas. So we urge your support and very much appreciate the chance to come and visit with you today.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Lowell? Seeing none, thank you very much, Senator Maye Quade. Senate File 1570 will be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill.
Thank you,
Thank you
Madam
very much. The next bill, we'll go back to Senator Hauschild now, on behalf of the Lake Superior School District. Senate File 1638. Senate File 1617, Senator Hauschild.
1638, Madam Chair, I believe.
I'm sorry, I was
That's
reading the
okay.
wrong number. Yes, I'm sorry, 1638, and there is you have
Yes. A1 amendment,
an
Madam Chair.
A1 amendment. Senator Hauschild offers the A1 amendment. Looks fairly technical, although we have to always be careful when someone inserts "and" as opposed to "or." That's cost us millions of dollars in the past, so.
It's all part of the plan, Madam Chair.
It's just one word, but it's not always technical. So thank you very much, Senator Hauschild, if you want to proceed after we adopt the amendment. All those in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Senator Hauschild, 1638 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is very similar to the last bill that I presented, and it's in the neighboring school district, the Lake Superior School District. This school district's one of the largest in the state. It covers the entire county of Lake as well as portions of St. Louis County. And it does have 3 locations: the Minnetonka Elementary School, the William Kelly School in Silver Bay, as well as the Two Harbors High School. In addition to that, this sales tax exemption would go towards improvements and replacements of a bus garage in Silver Bay and Two Harbors. Madam Chair, the revenue note is $1,320,000. What happened in this case, similar again to the last one, is the Lake Superior School District passed a referendum in 2021. As you can remember, that was during the height of COVID-19 and the inflationary cost that we were seeing across the board on many construction projects. So this school district came to me right away after I was elected. I toured all the schools, talked about the project, and we've really been working on providing the sales tax exemption for these projects for a while now. And you'll remember that this bill, I believe, was being included in the omnibus during last year's tax bill. So this is something that we have brought forward before, and you may recognize it. And with that, I do have the superintendent from the Lake Superior School Districts, a new superintendent, Madam Chair, who was previously a principal, and she will provide her testimony on the project.
Thank you very much, Senator Hauschild. Are there questions or comments for Senator Hauschild? Seeing none, welcome to the committee. Superintendent, if you'd identify yourself for the record, we welcome your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Rest and members of the committee, for the opportunity to testify in Senate File 1638. I am Gina Clive, Lake Superior School District Superintendent. I serve as superintendent, as Senator Hauschild had mentioned, of one of the largest school districts in our state, covering 5,200 square miles. I appreciate the continued perseverance in working towards the sales tax exemption for our district and our project. In November 2021, our district residents overwhelmingly approved a $44.1 million referendum to modernize our 3 schools, William Kelly Schools in Silver Bay, Minnehaha Elementary in Two Harbors, and Two Harbors High School, as well as our aging bus garages in both locations. These projects are not about luxury, they are about necessity, addressing critical health, safety, and educational needs that impact our students every day. Some of the essential upgrades underway include controlled and secured entrances to improve the safety of our schools, replacing outdated HVAC systems, boilers, and fire alarms to ensure clean air and safe environments, ADA accessibility improvements to make our facilities inclusive for all students and staff, modernizing classroom spaces, lighting, and technology to meet today's learning needs, essential updates to kitchens, playgrounds, and athletic facilities that serve both students and community. While the referendum was designed to be levy neutral and sustainable for at least 20 years, the reality of rising construction costs and inflation has placed a significant financial strain on our projects. Without relief, we face the difficult choices to value engineer key improvements or postponing necessary renovations, impacting the long-term quality and safety of our schools. Passing Senate File 1638 would provide much-needed sales tax relief, allowing us to maximize every dollar of our community's investment and ensure we can fully complete these critical improvements. This legislation is not about adding to the budget, it is about ensuring that taxpayers' approved funding stays in our district and goes directly toward the education and well-being of our students. On behalf of the Lake Superior School District, our students, and our communities, I urge you to support Senate File 1638 and help us build safe, modern, and accessible learning environments that will serve generations to come. Thank you for your time, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments for the superintendent? Seeing none, again, direct members' attention to the revenue estimate, which is only asked for in FY 2026. Seeing none, Senate File 1638 will be laid over as amended for the omnibus tax bill. Thank you, Senator Hauschild and Superintendent. The next bill on our agenda is Senate File 1541. Senator Putnam. Welcome to the committee, Senator Putnam, and we have 2 bills of yours. No, I guess it's 3. We'll begin with Senate File 1541.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I realize that I'm standing between us and done, so I will endeavor to be as efficient as possible.
It's okay. You take all the time you need.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for hearing Senate File 1541. As many of us know, this is an extremely difficult time to be a farmer, historically difficult time to be a farmer, especially in grain industries like corn and soy. The cost of implements keep rising, the cost of inputs keep rising, property taxes, commodity prices are awful, and uncertainty in the federal government has made a bad situation significantly worse. Madam Chair, to the bill itself, Senate File 1541 would provide a sales tax and use tax exemption for grain bins and tractor tires. To speak through the bill specifically, Section 1 strikes grain bins from the list of items explicitly excluded from being considered farm machinery under Minnesota Statutes 297A.61. Section 2 adds grain bins and tractor tires to the list of machinery, equipment, and fencing equipment exempt from sales and use tax under Minnesota Statute 297A.69, which is agricultural exemptions to sales and use tax. It also defines grain bins for purposes of Subdivision 4, and last, it includes an effective date for both sections, sales occurring after June 30th, 2025. Exempting grain bins and tractor tires from sales and use tax will Make it more affordable for farmers to purchase storage for grain. This is exceptionally important now, given the dynamism in a lot of commodity prices. The ability to store grain better allows farmers to weather market downturns and market their grain at the most profitable moment possible. It would also make more affordable for farmers to replace a part of their tractor that is essential. I hope I don't need to make this argument, but tires are pretty important to how a tractor works. They're a necessity, and they're extremely expensive. Again, with so much uncertainty out there, this is an important step the state of Minnesota can take to demonstrate to farmers that we have their back. Now, Madam Chair, I'd like to turn to our testifier, if we may.
Of course. Welcome to the committee, please, if you'd identify yourself for the record.
Absolutely. Chair Rest and members of the committee, my name is Charlie Radman, and I operate a corn and soybean farm near Randolph, Minnesota. I also proudly serve as the president of the Dakota County Farm Bureau. Thank you for the opportunity, allowing me the opportunity to testify in support of Senate File 1541. Grain storage and reliable equipment are fundamental to the success of every farming operation. Grain bins allow farmers to store crops until market conditions are more favorable, helping to ensure we receive the best price we can. Harvest is oftentimes the lowest price point for selling grain, and having on-farm storage gives farmers greater marketing flexibility and access to expanded markets. Without farm storage, farmers are often forced to sell to local elevators at less favorable prices, reducing our marketing options and limiting our profitability. Additionally, many farmers, including myself, work off the farm to supplement our income. Owning grain bins allows me to harvest on nights and weekends, ensuring that my operation runs efficiently. Unlike commercial elevators with limited hours, my grain bins are always open when I need them and give me full control over harvest schedule and reduce logistical challenges. It is also important to recognize that grain bins are not permanent structures. They can be unbolted, sold, and removed and moved if needed, making them distinct from other taxable infrastructure. Similarly, tractor tires are essential to modern farm operations. From planting to cultivating to harvest, tractors are necessary on every step of the way. These tires are a significant expense, and applying a sales tax increases the cost of doing business for Minnesota farmers. I recently talked with my dealer about the cost to put new tires on one of my tractors. Depending on brand and quality, the bill would run $7,000 to $10,000. My dealer mentioned that in their shop right now, they have several tractors that are in need of new tires, but that the farmers are deferring those expenses right now. They're going to try to make them last another season or two until maybe we have an upswing in the economy. Maybe, maybe not. By exempting grain bins and tractor tires from sales and use tax, the legislature can provide direct financial relief to farmers, allowing us to reinvest in our operations, upgrade equipment, and strengthen our farms for future generations. With low commodity prices and economic and trade uncertainty, this is one measure the state can take to lessen the burden on farmers. I urge the committee to support this common sense exemption and appreciate your time and consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Question or comments? Senator Putnam, I'd like to turn to the revenue estimate. If you had to choose between grain bins and tractor tires at this stage of looking at this, which one do you believe, and this is for your witness as well, would be the more critical element, and not necessarily by the cost of a single item, but just that makes the most sense to most farmers, both as a policy issue and by changing the impact of the definition from one section of the law where it is not regarded as a farm equipment into one that is. And of course, in your section 2, you're just adding the tractor tires, and the revenue estimate indicates that we're not talking about semis or large trucks, but obviously from the testimony, they are an expensive item. But I just wonder if you have comment about priorities or as we move forward with this proposal? Because it is, over 2 years, it's $7 million.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's an excellent question. And to be prudent and not get crosswise with big tire, I'm going to defer to my testifier, Mr. Radman, because I think that he's
Of course.
likely to have a more nuanced understanding of which is more expensive and which is more
Of
necessary.
course. Thank you, Senator Putnam. Mr. Edmund.
Madam Chair, that is a great question. It's also one that's difficult to answer because there's probably different perspectives on how you look at that. The tire becomes an essential piece of producing the crop and operating the crop, and currently those production attributes are exempt from taxes in current Minnesota state statute. On the flip side of that, grain storage facilities are a much bigger expense. I'm actually improving my grain dryer this year, not adding any storage, but in talking with the company that'll do the construction and install, typical grain bin in southeast Minnesota, the sales tax on that is going to be $3,000 to $5,000. That's basically a month's worth of after-tax income that needs to be generated in order to pay the tax on that construction. So it's a very big number from the grain bin standpoint. I'll also state that when I first started farming, my first capital investments were in grain storage and handling, because I knew as someone who is going to need to have off-farm income that I needed that grain bin to be open when I'm harvesting, so I can manage around my off-farm work position and being able to get out the crop before I have field losses, and then also to maximize profitability to say, I'm not going to be captive to the local market where I haul my grain and sell at the time of harvest, or store there and then be captive to them as my selling location, and I can have options. So it was the first thing I invested in as a farmer.
Mr. Radman, one of the comments you made about the grain bins is that they are not a permanent structure. They're are movable or portable, at least in a very high-level sense of that. As I recall, some years ago, we had a lot of discussion. It almost rivaled Senator Putnam pertinences, and it was how we were to regard grain bins and some other structure too, but it was bins and what, Senator Weber, do you recall?
Probably before my time, Madam Chair.
Okay, that discussion went on for a couple of years, and I actually don't recall whether they ended up being considered not personal property, that it was also a capital investment. And so we have upfront exemptions for capital equipment, that is the huge machinery inside a warehouse that is almost by definition not movable. And so that became part of the discussion a number of years ago about grain bins, and I don't know the resolution of that, and I don't know if Ms. Pollock knows either, but I was struck by the notion that you don't consider them capital equipment in that regard because they are personal property that is movable and can be installed here or there or wherever suits your business. So I'm very intrigued by that kind of distinction as we look to make priority choices, if indeed we get to the point where we can endorse these requests for exemptions that are coming not from local governments, but from the farm economy and agricultural businesses. So just for discussion, Senator Klein.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Putnam, for the profile of 3 bills that you're going to bring before us. I'm particularly grateful for Mr. Radman kind of telling us how this impacts Dakota County. farmers in Dakota County and representing them. I think this is really timely that we as a state of Minnesota say we're going to try to hold down costs for farmers in our area, particularly when at the federal level we know that costs may rise due to trade wars and tariffs. So this is a post in the sand saying that in Minnesota we're going to keep costs down for farmers. So thank you, Mr. Radman, and thank you, Senator Putnam.
Senator Nelson?
Oh, I do, I believe, I'm highly supportive of the bill. But I believe the topic you were mentioning that had a similar discussion a few years ago had to do with ethanol plants and some of the large storage tanks in the ethanol plants. So just to tie that up.
Maybe similarly important to a different industry. Yeah. Thank you. Senator Weber.
As it relates to steel bin storage on the farm, I think as we go back in history, they have always been considered an element of personal property from the standpoint they qualified for investment tax credit when that was available. Okay. And their depreciation rules were always more towards on the lines of personal equipment as opposed to the rules as it relates to buildings and what have you. And certainly.
Does that mean, Senator Weber, that they were able to use accelerated depreciation rules?
Going back, and then things have changed since I've been heavily involved in it, but they would qualify, as I recall, for Section 179 expensing actually today, and actually probably, if I remember correctly, a steel bin when it was put up would be given perhaps a 7 to 10 year useful life for depreciation purposes, as opposed to a building which might have a 24, 35, or 6-year useful life. And certainly there are instances of farm sales today whereby bins are sold, torn down, and reconstructed at another site. So,
okay, thank you for the information. Other questions or comments? It's been very instructive, your bill today. Thank you, Senator Putnam. Any others? Seeing none, Senate File 1541 will be laid over for consideration in omnibus bill. Your second bill before us is Senate File 1604. Senator Putnam. And again, I direct members' attention to the revenue estimates. Senate File 1604. Senator Putnam, joined in this bill by Senator Rarick. Senator Putnam.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for hearing this bill. I'll save us some time and not go through some of the trials and tribulations that face Minnesota's ag economy right now. But I do want to say that I've heard the phrase repeatedly lately, the great farm recession of 2025. That's the world that we're in right now. In a world that, as Senator Klein mentioned earlier, is exacerbated by some irresponsibility and chaos at the federal level. So it is our opportunity as residents and legislators in Minnesota to do what we can to stand up for our ag economy and our farmers. And Senate File 1604 is an example of that work. This bill includes fencing in the list of farm equipment that is exempt from sales tax. The operative language of the bill is in Section 1, Subdivision 4, line 6, which reads, quote, fencing including materials and supplies used or consumed in and equipment incorporated into construction, improvement, repair, or replacement of fencing used directly and principally in agricultural production of tangible personal property intended to be sold ultimately at retail. And then secondly, it includes an effective date. Madam Chair, I would point us briefly back to the bill that we just heard and that bit of statute there, which actually has a clause in it which exempts fencing for farming deer. So in a sense, this is consistent or simply an extension of that original.
Farmed cervidae is a very favorite phrase that we like to use in the legislature for keeping deer inside fences.
Exactly. So, Madam Chair, it is, in a sense, kind of an echo of that earlier bit of statute. Again, not to belabor the point, I think I probably should just turn over the testimony to our testifiers,
Sure.
please.
Mr. Clevin, if you would identify yourself for the record, and again, as you're speaking, I direct members' attention to the revenue estimate. This is a permanent, not a one-time sales tax exemption. Mr. Clevin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Bruce Clavin. I represent the Minnesota State Cattlemen's Association this morning, the beef cow producers. And want to thank Senator Putnam for bringing this bill, and for you, Madam Chair, for hearing it. I would mention it's a bipartisan bill. Senator Rarick is a co-author. And the cattlemen have brought this bill before. We didn't approach the senator on this, but certainly support it. And this has been in front of the committee over the years before, the fencing exemption. As Senator Putnam pointed out, there is precedent up in line 1.10 and 1.11. So just lend our support to the bill, and thank you for hearing it. I would ad lib one thing on the previous discussion. You were close, Senator Nelson, the ethanol tanks would have been affected, but the case that was brought in front of you was for sugar beet processing inside the factory. Was it stainless, were the stainless steel tanks personal or attached to the property?
There you go.
The issue was brought to the tax court. The company lost, so they came to the legislature. It might even have been Senator Skoye that carried the bill. And I forget if it was the personal or the real. Whichever it was, they didn't get the outcome. And I don't think the committee adopted it because of the fiscal note, but that was the issue, was in sugar beets.
I see. Thank you.
And then Senator Nelson's right, it would have picked up ethanol and others, so.
Thank you, Mr. Clevin. Our other testimony is Mr. Pat Lieneman from the Farmers Union.
Thank you, Chair Rest, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Pat Lieneman. I'm testifying as a farmer and on behalf of Minnesota Farmers Union to support our strong support, to share our strong support for Senator Putnam's bill to accept farm fencing from sales tax. I am a first-generation farmer, and my wife, Rachel, and I breed and raise grass-fed beef in Waseca County. Probably every farmer thinks this, but our farm is a special place. It has gentle hills and is bisected by Waterville Creek. The retired farmer who built the house we live in pastured cattle on the land as a younger man, and remnants of those rusted barbed wire fences still hint at the property lines. Needless to say, when we started our farm, we had to make many improvements to get cattle back on the land. We worked with the NRCS and ran water lines, planted and fertilized new forages, and fenced in hayfields to create some permanent pasture. Cattle prices weren't nearly what they are now, so even including our first heifers, out of all the beginning expenses, the fencing was the single highest cost. And I was very confused why, unlike every other farm purchase I had been making, I had to pay sales tax on it. It didn't end there. We practiced rotational grazing and also have a lot of grass outside our permanent fencing. So in order to maximize our forage utilization, especially during droughts, we utilized dozens of step-in fence posts and miles of polywire fencing, also all taxed. Exempting fencing from sales tax could be beneficial to any farmer, but I know it'd be especially helpful to beginning farmers. Each year I continue to buy some amount of fencing and supplies for repairs and upkeep, but I spent the most on fencing during that establishing year when I had the most expenses and the fewest options for profit. This bill would also be beneficial to those who are grazing livestock to manage perennial forages or graze cropland as consistent with soil health principles. Livestock moving across the land is good for the soil, for our economy, and our communities as well. Treating fencing like other agricultural supplies and exempting it from sales tax just makes sense and would be helpful to many of us, but especially to those of us just starting out. Thank you, Senator Putnam, for your work on this bill, and I ask for the committee's support. Thank you.
Are there questions or comments on this bill for Senator Putnam or his witnesses? Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also comment that in today's grazing practices have changed. It used to be you have a pasture, one pasture with a fence around the perimeter, that was your fencing. However, in today's practices, you have rotational grazing whereby grazing occurs for a limited period of time and then cattle are moved to another site in order to allow regrowth, and which is, number one, is good for the grass itself and also helps in terms of erosion control. And so anytime that I have to estimate a fence cost in my appraisal practice, I am constantly amazed by the increases in cost that option has taken in recent years.
Thank you, Senator Weber. Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Putnam, for bringing this bill and these bills. And due to some of the comments that were made here by members earlier, I think I need to be able to provide a little bit of balance. Certainly, while some members of the majority are trying to seize on things that are happening at the federal level to make it look like, oh, suddenly Democrats love farmers and they're doing this for them in order to save them from President Trump. That's not the case. And Senator Putnam, I have confidence in you as chair of the Ag Committee and watching you work that you are there for farmers regardless of the policy. And Madam Chair, members, I could bring out all of the regulation and taxation that this legislature in here in the state of Minnesota has placed to oppress our farmers and their economy, but I won't. I won't delineate those here today. This bill and the other bills, Senator, that you have before you are good because they're good for the economy of farmers in our state. And that's what we need to be making decisions on rather than making veiled political pleas in the middle of a tax committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So, thank you, Senator Cwodzinski. I think your comments, Senator Putnam, were maybe an example of praeteritio, which is emphasis, as you know, emphasis by omission. And Senator Cwodzinski, I appreciate that there's always going to be a political, if not always partisan, nature of the comments that we make about policy, whether it's here in the tax committee, whether it's about current administrations at the federal level or past ones. So I'm not offended by your defending President Trump, nor by Senator Klein's referring to the uncertainties that the whole nation is facing by decisions that are being made at the federal level, some of which many of us like and endorse.
Very balanced, Madam Chair.
Okay. Anybody else? Senate File 1604, Senator Putnam is laid over. Thank you, gentlemen, for your testimony.
Thank you.
The last bill is Senate File 1712. Senator Putnam, again, a general sales tax provision. This is not a local government one, although probably all of us have no problem claiming state fairs anyplace. So we appreciate your bringing this bill to us. I will note to begin with, again, this is a permanent sales tax exemption. It is not a single one for construction purposes. It is supported by the House Tax Chair, at least to Section 2, Senator Representative Davids. Senator Putnam, if you would begin with explaining Senate File 1712.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And if I may, just a self-indulgence real quickly. I don't think that anyone else had praeteritio on their bingo card for today. So I very much appreciate that.
Sure.
Madam Chair, everyone loves the state fair. And I probably should have brought corn dogs, given the earlier discussion about soda. But a lot of the buildings at the state fair were a lot of the buildings in the state fair were built in the 1930s. That's a while ago. And I think we all know that construction's gotten a little bit more expensive since then. And there are two real tools that the state fair uses to support its capital investments and keep its buildings in order. And one of those is borrowing and the other is the sales tax. So this bill intervenes in both those concerns. The bill itself does three things. On line 1.16, it increases the amount that the State Agricultural Society can borrow from $30 million to $50 million. Secondly, lines 1.22 to lines 2.7 exempt the state fair from sales tax on tickets and such. And last, the bill makes explicit effective dates. To those two issues, Madam Chair, if I may, the first is that the current bonding limit of $30 million is inadequate. With the cost of construction, the state needs, the Agricultural Society needs the capacity to borrow more to do any real capital investments or changes. Now, the sales tax situation at the fair has been dynamic. Historically, the state fair has been permitted to retain its sales tax. However, in the early 2000s, the state experienced an economic downturn. And at that point, state and county fairs were required to remit this tax. Recently, however, the county fairs regained their ability to retain their sales tax. This bill would do the same for the state fair. Now, the sales tax yo-yo suggests this change in policy, but I think it also should inspire a larger conversation about taxation and the relationship between the state fair and its local communities. For example, our friends in Falcon Heights still have an ambivalent relationship with the fair, culturally and economically. I hope that as we consider issues like this, we make sure to center communities like Falcon Heights. We might go to the fair, but some folks basically live there. So their experiences, infrastructure, and pocketbooks are just as important. That's an aside, if you will, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for consideration of this bill, and I'd now like to turn to my testifier, if I may.
Thank you very much. We'll hear from your testifier, and then I have a couple of questions. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Alexander. And we're pleased to have your testimony. If you will identify yourself for the record.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Renee Alexander, and I am CEO of the Minnesota State Fair, the Great Minnesota Get Together. So I am honored to be here today, and thank you to Senator Putnam for bringing this bill forward. You know, the importance of the Minnesota State Fair, we were founded in 1854 with the goal to celebrate all that is great about Minnesota, and that remains our goal today. We are a treasured institution and a vital cultural, economic, and educational asset to our state. We attract millions of visitors annually and operate, as Senator Putnam said, without direct state funding and are self-sustained through ticket revenue, vendor fees, and parking. Senator Putnam brought forward what our requests are today around increasing our ability to borrow as well as the retention of sales tax. And that's to ensure our infrastructure integrity moving forward. We have been in our current location since 1885 and serve more than 2 million visitors annually. It's 322-acre park-like setting with iconic buildings, trees, miles of sidewalks, and streets require continuous repair and maintenance. We have a handout in your packets that show some of those iconic structures that need some definite TLC. Our historic Lee and Rose Werner Coliseum, which we are starting phase 1 of a $23 million project this April. Also our 4-H building and the iconic agriculture and horticulture building, among others. And as Senator Putnam said, many of these buildings are 75 to 100 years old. We are also looking at accessibility upgrades and improved emergency response systems. In the last 20 years, the State Fair has invested more than $150 million into fairgrounds improvements. The rising cost of construction makes those improvements increasingly difficult. You know, the State Fair is part of strengthening Minnesota's economy. We generate typically about $300 million in economic impact every year. That's Super Bowl-sized economic impact on an annual basis. We support Minnesota businesses, tourism, agriculture, employees, and vendors from throughout our state. And our well-maintained fairgrounds are essentials to sustaining and expanding that impact. Our infrastructure improvements will enhance the guest experience, improve vendor opportunities, ensure the fair remains a premier event. We're also all about supporting agricultural and educational advancement. It's the largest state gathering dedicated to agriculture and education. It supports FFA, 4-H, and youth development programs. And our facility improvements will enhance exhibition spaces and competition areas, improve educational programming, and preserve Minnesota's agricultural heritage. We also, what I like to say, as Senator Putnam mentioned, neighbors to our north of Falcon Heights, to our east, we have the city of St. Paul, and we like to be a good neighbor, not just the big neighbor, and are always engaged in communication and conversations with our neighbors to make sure that we make as minimal of an impact as we can during those 12 days. So with that, I appreciate your time. I realize you have a lot of requests in front of you, and I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Putnam, this bill is two distinct sections. The first section about the bonding authority, the increase in that, that wouldn't have to be considered by any other committee, would it? Not our capital investment committee, because you're not asking for dollars from the state, just increasing the ability from whatever funds they have available to them to increase their authority to be able to engage in additional capital projects themselves without asking for state support. Am I understanding that correctly?
Madam Chair, that is my understanding. In terms of precedent, when I've done work with the
And so
RFA, the RFA doesn't need to go through.
So it is correctly in this committee as part of a public financing article if we include it in the final bill. The revenue estimate is only drawn to the sales tax exemptions. Is that correct? Ms. Pollack says that is correct. And this is one of those bills also that we could possibly take one or two of the parts of it and/or scale them to give some help, but not this automatic permanent exemption that is millions of dollars each year just in the coming biennium. What would it be? Over $8 million for the biennium. We could look at something that was that had less of an impact, but it seems to me I don't see any reason not to support the bonding authority request that you all are making here. That's my own opinion. Are there any questions or comments for Senator Putnam or for Ms. Alexander? Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just I want to be clear just for the record, even though I see it in front of my own eyeballs, but just to verbalize. The sales tax exemption is confined just to admissions and parking and/or admissions of separately ticketed events run by the State Agricultural Society, which I have a question about what that is exactly, but not for sales.
Outsiders.
Yeah, outside of those two kinds of transactions.
Senator Putnam.
Yes, Madam Chair, thanks for the question, Senator Dibble. That's my understanding as well.
Great. And Madam Chair, what is a separately ticketed event run by the State Agricultural Society, number 2 there?
Ms. Alexander.
Madam Chair, Senator Dibble, coming out of COVID, the state fair, we were broke like so many other events, and we created the Kickoff to Summer event, which happens over Memorial Day weekend. So that is an event that is self-produced. All of the other events that happen throughout the summer, that other season, those are handled by outside promoters. So their ticketing fees would not be applied. The exemption would not apply to those ticketing fees, just to events that the fair produces itself, which at this point are those two.
Then
Senator Dibble.
I just have a couple of more quick questions.
Okay,
Don't want to
go ahead.
delay our committee time here. We have 2 minutes left.
We'll take a couple minutes.
All right. Just how would you respond? This obviously will have a consequence for the sales tax that's collected in the metropolitan area to provide things like transit services. Just remind me, how do you interact with, and also housing, of course, how do you interact with Metro Transit in terms of provision of transit support to the fair? Do you contract with them separately and pay for those services, or how does that work?
Ms. Alexander.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Dibble. Yes, we contract with a private Lorenz bus service, provides our park and ride service, which is 33 free lots typically that we use kind of in those closer rings around the fairgrounds. And then we also contract directly with Metro Transit for they do the express bus service that is outside. So we work with multiple entities around easing those transportation pain as much as we can.
Thank you.
Senator Dibble?
Thank you. Well, I still have concern. I mean, I realize we're probably not going to do the sales tax exemption. It might be a little bit rich, a little bit too far reach. But, you know, obviously this idea will continue to come back, and I would express concern from that perspective. And then Senator Putnam, I think you've had conversations with Senator Verbaeten, who represents Falcon Heights, who would very much like to enter into a more meaningful conversation with the State Fair. As I understand from Senator Verbaeten, the consequence to Falcon Heights' budget in terms of public safety issues and other kinds of issues that they have to contend with, for which they receive no reimbursement from the State Fair, approaches $75,000 or $100,000. They get no money, contrasted with St. Paul, who I think cites a cost of in the neighborhood of $500,000, and they do receive some reimbursement, maybe through contracted services, in the amount of $450,000. So how do we respond to Senator Verbaeten's concern about the neighborliness of the State Fair to Falcon Heights?
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Senator Putnam, I believe that Senator Verbaeten has shared her concerns with you. But if you'd be responsive insofar as you can to Senator Dibble's question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Dibble. And that's my final comments in the presentation of the bill were intended to include her in that conversation and to have us think a little bit more about the relationship between the State Fair and its smaller neighbor. I think there's a good chance that St. Paul is probably more engaged in these kind of conversations than Falcon Heights has been. And so my comments were intended actually as a way of attempting to get Senator Verbaeten a greater space in that conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Dibble. Any further comments from members or questions? Seeing none, Senate File 1712 is laid over for consideration in the omnibus bill. Our schedule for tomorrow is,
We have the one bill posted right now. I have no further information from you.
okay, what is the number of that?
I want to say 2047 off the top of my head, sorry.
Senator Putnam, what is the number of your bill?
Senator Hauschild.
Or Senator, And what is yours? Is it a Hauschild bill?
It's the Senator Hauschild.
Senator Hauschild, your bill? 2076. Those will, any changes to those bills, et cetera, are going to be posted, and we will be taking up both of them. There being no further business before the Senate Taxes Committee, we're adjourned.